When a boy who could barely walk himself insisted on meeting the most dangerous dog in the shelter, the staff thought he'd lost his mind. But Ethan hadn't lost anything. He'd found something most people never do. Faith that love could reach places fear refused to go. And on that quiet Tuesday afternoon, in a cement kennel that smelled of bleach and broken dreams, two wounded souls would prove that healing doesn't always come from those who are whole. Sometimes, it comes from those who understand what it means to be shattered. They called him Copper. Not because of the rusty auburn patches that still clung to his scarred coat, but because that's what was written on the metal tag when animal control brought him in. Half-starved, trembling, with wounds too deep to be accidents. The German Shepherd mix had arrived 6 months ago, a ghost of what a dog should be. His ribs pressed against dull fur. His left ear was torn at the tip, but it was his eyes that told the real story. Amber and empty, like windows to a house no one lived in anymore. The shelter workers spoke about him in whispers. Don't get too close. He lunges at men. Snapped at anyone who tried to touch him. His kennel was at the very end of the corridor, away from the cheerful barks and wagging tails of the adoptable dogs. Back where the fluorescent lights flickered. Where hope went to die quietly. Copper never barked. Never whined. He just sat in the corner, staring at the concrete wall as if searching for a door that didn't exist. Sometimes, late at night when the shelter was silent, the staff would hear him. A low, mournful sound that wasn't quite a howl. It was the sound of something that had given up on being saved. The director had already signed the papers. 2 more weeks, and Coppa's suffering would be over. No one thought that was cruel. They thought it was mercy. Ethan Mitchell was 9 years old, and he walked like every step was a prayer. For months earlier, a car had run a red light. The impact had shattered his left femur and fractured his hip. The physical therapy was brutal. Metal rods, tears, endless repetition. But what hurt more than his leg was the fear he saw in people's eyes. Fear that he'd never run again. Fear that he was broken beyond repair. Fear disguised as pity. His parents had brought him to the shelter hoping a puppy might lift his spirits. Something small, they said. Something gentle. Something easy. But Ethan had never been interested in easy. He moved slowly through the adoption wing, his cane tapping against linoleum, his mother hovering close. Past the beagles and terriers that yipped for attention. Past the volunteers holding kittens like precious offerings. And then he heard it. Not a bark. Not a whine. Silence. The kind of silence that screams. What's back there? Ethan asked, nodding toward the dim hallway the staff avoided. Nothing you need to see, sweetheart. A volunteer said quickly. Let's look at these. But Ethan was already moving, cane clicking, determination in every careful step. His mother called after him. His father tried to redirect. But something deeper than logic was pulling him forward. The way a compass finds north, the way light finds cracks. The kennel was darker than the others. Copper sat in the far corner. A statue carved from sorrow. When Ethan appeared at the gate, the dog's head lifted slowly. Not with interest, but with the exhausted recognition of someone who'd learned that humans only brought pain. Oh no. The director said, rushing up behind them. Ethan, that dog is not. What's his name? Ethan asked quietly. His name doesn't matter. He's aggressive. What's his name? Ethan repeated, softer this time. The director sighed. Copper. But son, you need to understand. Can I meet him? The adults exchanged glances. Ethan's mother gripped his shoulder. Honey, maybe we should. Please. That single word carried the weight of 100 physical therapy sessions. Of nights crying into his pillow. Of wondering if he'd ever feel whole again. The director hesitated. Protocol said no. Common sense said no. Every instinct said no. But there was something in the boy's eyes. A quiet knowing. That made her pause. 5 minutes. She said finally. And I'm right here. She unlocked the gate. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the concrete space. Coppa's body tensed. A low rumble started in his chest. Not quite a growl, but a warning, nonetheless. Ethan. I really don't think. His father started. But Ethan was already inside. He didn't rush. Didn't reach out. He simply stood there, leaning on his cane, and looked at Copper the way no one else ever had. Not with fear. Not with judgment. But with recognition. "Hey, Copper," he said softly. "My name's Ethan." The dog's ears flicked. His rumble deepened. Everyone outside the kennel held their breath. And then Ethan did something that made his mother gasp. He lowered himself to the ground. Slowly, carefully, he knelt on the cold concrete. The very position his doctors had warned against, the one that sent lightning through his healing bones. But he knelt anyway. Until he was at eye level with the dog who'd forgotten what kindness looked like. "I know you're scared," Ethan whispered. Kappa's body trembled. His lips pulled back slightly, showing teeth. Not in aggression, but in confusion. This didn't fit the pattern. Humans didn't kneel. Humans didn't speak softly. Humans hurt. "I was scared too," Ethan continued, his voice barely audible. "When the car hit us. When I woke up in the hospital and couldn't move my leg. When everyone looked at me like I was broken." His hand rested on his own leg, fingers tracing the line where surgeons had pieced him back together. "My mom says God puts people together for reasons we don't always understand. She says sometimes the broken ones are the ones who can see each other best." A tear slipped down Ethan's cheek. "You're not bad, Copper. You're just hurt." And then, in a voice that cracked with the weight of his own pain, the boy closed his eyes and began to pray. Not loud. Not for show. Just a quiet conversation with something bigger than fear. "Please, God. Let him know he's not alone anymore. Let him feel what I feel when Mom holds my hand in the hospital. Let him know. Let him know it's okay to trust again." The kennel fell into a stillness that felt sacred. Seconds stretched into eternity. And then, Kappa's ears shifted forward. His trembling slowed. The rumble in his chest faded to silence. He lifted his scarred muzzle and took a single, tentative breath. Then another. His amber eyes. Those windows to an abandoned house. Flickered with something dormant but not dead. Slowly, impossibly, Copper moved. One paw forward. Then another. Closer. The adults outside barely breathed. Copper stopped just inches from Ethan's outstretched hand. His nose twitched. His entire body was a question mark. "Can I? Should I? What if?" "It's okay," Ethan whispered. "I promise. It's okay." And then, as gentle as dawn breaking through darkness, Copper leaned forward and pressed his scarred head into Ethan's palm. The boy's fingers sank into matted fur. The dog's eyes closed. And for the first time in 6 months, Copper exhaled. What happened next? No one who witnessed it would ever forget. Copper collapsed into Ethan's lap. Not in aggression, not in weakness, but in surrender. The kind of surrender that only comes when something broken finally believes it might be safe to heal. His body shook with silent sobs that had lived in his bones too long. Ethan wrapped both arms around him, his cane clattering to the floor, forgotten. "I've got you," the boy whispered into scarred fur. "I've got you." Outside the kennel, Ethan's mother had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming. His father's eyes were wide with disbelief. The shelter director stood frozen, witnessing something she'd been told was impossible. The dangerous dog. The aggressive dog. The hopeless dog. Was weeping in the arms of a boy who understood that healing and being healed are often the same thing. Light from the high window shifted, casting a beam across them both. Golden and warm, like the physical presence of grace. Dust motes danced in the glow. The concrete didn't seem so cold anymore. Copper lifted his head, and his amber eyes. Those empty windows were full again. Full of something ancient and new all at once. Trust. "Can we take him home?" Ethan asked. Not looking away from Copper. His parents exchanged a glance. This wasn't the puppy they'd planned on. This was a commitment. A responsibility. A risk. But then his mother saw it. Her son was standing. Without his cane. Without hesitation. Without fear. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes. We can take him home." The paperwork took 20 minutes. But the healing had already begun. As Ethan walked out of that shelter, Copper pressed against his side, matching his careful pace. Two limping souls learning to walk together. Everyone who saw them understood something profound. Love doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. The world had called Copper dangerous. Broken. Beyond saving. But God had called him Ethan's. And maybe that's how miracles work. Not with thunder and lightning, but with a boy who needed to save something as much as he needed to be saved himself. With a prayer whispered in a concrete kennel. With faith that refused to see obstacles, only opportunities for grace. 3 months later, Copper would walk without limping. Ethan would run without his cane. And when people asked what healed them, they'd both know the answer. Each other. Because that Tuesday afternoon, in a place where hope went to die, 2 wounded hearts discovered what the whole world needs to remember. We are never too broken to be loved. We are never too scarred to be chosen. And we are never, ever beyond the reach of divine compassion. The day Copper met Ethan was the day they both came back to life. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today.